Let me share my screen also. Rule 11, I think. Okay, and after the prayers, we can start after that. जय जय श्री चैतन्य जय नित्यानंद जय अद्वैत चंद्र जय गौर भक्त वृंद जय जय श्री चैतन्य जय नित्यानंद जय अद्वैत चंद्र जय गौर भक्त वृंद जय जय श्री चैतन्य जय नित्यानंद जय अद्वैत चंद्र जय गौर भक्त वृंद नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्ण व्यस्ताय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांता स्वामी नित्य नामने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यस्तारिणी ओम अज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे. Looks like Swapna Mataji could not join. Would one of you like to read until she joins, if she joins? If not, I can continue.
Sure, Prabhu, I can read.
Sure, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Text 211. All the gopis, the personal friends of Srimati Radharani, are equal to her. Krishna is pleasant to the inhabitants of Vraja Bhumi, just as the moon is pleasant to the lotus flower. His pleasure-given potency is known as Aladini, of which the active principle is Srimati Radharani. She is compared to a creeper with newly grown flowers and leaves. When the nectar of Krishna's pastimes is sprinkled on Srimati Radharani, all her friends, the gopis, immediately appreciate the pleasure 100 times more than if they were sprinkled themselves. Actually, this is not at all wonderful. 212. Although the gopis, Srimati Radharani's friends, do not desire to enjoy themselves directly with Krishna, Srimati Radharani makes a great endeavor to induce Krishna to enjoy himself with the gopis. 213. Presenting various pleas for the gopis, Srimati Radharani sometimes sends the gopis to Krishna just to enable them to associate with him directly. At such times, she enjoys a happiness 10 million times greater than that enjoyed through direct association. 214. The transcendental mellow is nourished by that mutual behavior in transcendental love of Godhead. When Lord Krishna sees how the gopis have developed pure love for him, he becomes very satisfied. 215. It is to be noted that the natural characteristic of the gopis is to love the Supreme Lord. Their lusty desire is not to be compared to material lust. Nonetheless, because their desire sometimes appears to resemble material lust, their transcendental love for Krishna is sometimes described as lust. 216. Although the dealings of the gopis with Krishna are on the platform of pure love of Godhead, such dealings are sometimes considered to be lusty. But because they are completely spiritual, Uddhava and all the other dearmost devotees of the Lord desire to participate in them. 217. Lusty desires are experienced when one is concerned with his own personal sense gratification. The mood of the gopis is not like that. Their only desire is to satisfy the senses of Krishna. 218. Among the gopis, there is not a pinch of desire for sense gratification. Their only desire is to give pleasure to Krishna, and this is why they mingle with him and enjoy with him. 219. All the gopis said, Dear Krishna, we carefully hold your delicate lotus feet upon our hard breast. When you walk in the forest, your soft lotus feet are pricked by small bits of stone. We fear that this is paining you. Since you are our life and soul, our minds are very much disturbed when your lotus feet are pained. 220. One who is attracted by that ecstatic love of the gopis does not care about popular opinion or the regulative principles of Vedic life. Rather, he completely surrenders unto Krishna and renders service unto him. 221. If one worships the Lord on the path of spontaneous love and goes to Vrindavanam, he receives the shelter of Vrajendra Nandana, the son of Nanda Maharaj. 222. In his liberated stage, the devotee is attracted by one of the 5 humors in the transcendental love and service of the Lord. As he continues to serve the Lord in that transcendental mood, he attains a spiritual body to serve Krishna in Gokula Vrindavan. 223. Those saintly persons who represent the Upanishads are vivid examples of this. By worshipping the Lord on the path of spontaneous love, they attain the lotus feet of Rajendra Nandana, the son of Nanda Maharaja. 224. Great sages conquer the mind and senses by practicing the mystic yogic system and controlling the breath. Thus, engaging in mystic yoga, they see the super soul within your hearts and ultimately enter into impersonal Brahman. But even the enemies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead attain that position simply by thinking of the Supreme Lord. However, the damsels of Raja, the gopis, being attracted by the beauty of Krishna, simply wanted to embrace him and his arms, which are like serpents. Thus, the gopis ultimately tasted the nectar of the lotus feet of the Lord. Similarly, we Upanishads can also taste the nectar of his lotus feet by following in the footsteps of the gopis. 225. The word samadrasaha, mentioned in the 4th line of the previous verse, means following the mood of the gopis. The word samaha means the Struti's attainment of bodies like those of the gopis. 226. The word angre padma sudha means associating intimately with Krishna. One can attain such perfection only by spontaneous love of God. One cannot obtain Krishna in Gokula Vrindavan simply by serving the Lord according to regulative principles. 227. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, the son of Mother Yashoda, is accessible to those devotees engaged in spontaneous love and service. But he is not as easily accessible to mental speculators, to those striving for self-realization by severe austerities and penances, or to those who consider the body the shame as the self. 228. Therefore, one should accept the mood of the gopis in their service. In such a transcendental mood, one should always think of the pastimes of Sri Radha and Krishna. 229. After thinking of Radha and Krishna and their pastimes for a long time, and after getting completely free from material contamination, one is transferred to the spiritual world. There, the devotee attains an opportunity to serve Radha and Krishna as one of the gopis. 230. Unless one follows in the footsteps of the gopis, he cannot attain the service of the lotus feet of Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaja. If one is overcome by knowledge of the Lord's opulence, he cannot attain the Lord's lotus feet, even though he is engaged in devotional service. Prabhu, how far do I have to go?
237, Mati.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
231. The unspoken example in this connection is the goddess of fortune, who worshipped Lord Krishna in order to attain his pastime in Vrindavana. But due to her opulent lifestyle, she could not attain the service of Krishna in Vrindavana. 232. When Lord Shri Krishna was dancing with the gopis in the Rasa Lila, the gopis were embraced around the neck by the Lord's arms. This transcendental favor was never bestowed upon the goddess of fortune or the other consorts in the spiritual world. nor was such a thing ever imagined by the most beautiful girls in the heavenly planets, girls whose bodily luster and aroma resemble the beauty and fragrance of lotus flowers. And what to speak of worldly women, who may be very, very beautiful according to material estimation. 233. After hearing this, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraced Ramananda Raya, and both of them, embracing shoulder to shoulder, began to cry. 234. The entire night was passed in this way, in ecstatic love of Godhead. In the morning, they both departed to tend to their respective duties. 235. Before departing from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Ramananda Raya fell to the ground and caught hold of the Lord's lotus feet. He then spoke submissively as follows. 236. Ramananda Raya said, "You have come here just to show me your causeless mercy. Therefore, stay here for at least 10 days and purify my polluted mind." 237. But for you, there is no one who can deliver all the living entities, for you alone can deliver, Lord of Krishna. Hare Krishna.
And let's stop sharing for a few minutes while we discuss the context, and we'll go back to the verses again. So basically, the context here is that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is having a conversation with Sri Ramananda Rai. It is the bank of the Godavari river is described, while Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is in the South India tour. This is one of the biggest conversations we are hearing in Chaitanya Charitamrita. And we're getting towards the almost, let me see, end of the chapter? No. Yeah, there's still a lot of sections in this chapter, but at least 3/4 of the chapter is done now. So where we heard how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu started the topic with what is the goal of life, like that, or the highest perfection of life, like that he started. And then Ramananda explained everything, and he went all the way up to love of gopis and love of Srimati Radharani, like that he talked about. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was happy to hear that, and he asked him to describe about what is the sadhana method to achieve that perfection. And before that, he actually asked the glories of Krishna, glories of Srimati Radharani, like that. Those are all explained. So now, in this current section, let me go back to that section. Yeah, in this section, where is describing the sadhana or the process to attain the sadhya or the goal. Or what is the process to attain that goal that he discussed? In that, they're glorifying, Ramananda is glorifying the love of the gopis being the topmost, like that. And how, in order to, and then after that section is over, how in order to attain Krishna, we need to practice spontaneous loving devotion by following footsteps of gopis. Those are two sections today. So going to that, back to the verses. So glories of gopis love is being described. Let me go back to sharing my screen so you can see some verses. Going back to 211 verse. I think it's 211 today, right? Yeah. Let me just confirm. Yeah, 211 only. Okay, so here, what is being described here at 211? Let me go to my book also. Yeah, here, basically the point here, when Krishna's pastimes are experienced by Srimati Radharani, then the gopis are not envious. Gopis are actually experiencing, appreciating a pleasure 100 times more than if they have the association of Krishna directly. That's the important principle. It is discussed in opposite direction also, we'll see. Basically, sometimes only when we have some object, when we have some person and some relationship with one person, we're the most happiest. But in this case, gopis are more happier, 100 times more happier if Krishna is with Radharani, it seems. That is the nature of love of gopis. It's not lustful, or it is nothing compared to material lust. That's what is going to be discussed also in the next few verses. Then going to 212 verse, going to 212 and 213 verses. these verses are describing Radharani's happiness. When, yeah, even though gopis want Radharani to meet Krishna, and that way they don't want to enjoy themselves. They don't have any personal enjoyment, spirit, mood. But Radharani, Srimati Radharani, makes a great endeavor, it seems. For what? To have Krishna give association to gopis, it seems. So that's the nature of spiritual world. And then is described Srimati Radharani use it with the different pleas. She sometimes sends them in association of Krishna. Then when gopis are associating with Krishna, Radharani enjoys happiness 10 million times greater than that when she gets the association of Krishna directly like that. See, there's again symptoms of spiritual love and wonderful nature of the spiritual world also we can see here. So then, in fact, pure devotees also, they like to give credit to others. They like to, even some senior devotees, they like to send their junior devotees to the spiritual master. So that way they can have the association of a spiritual master or a great saintly person like that. That's what we can see here also example. Now going to 214 verse. Here, here Krishna's happiness is being described. When Lord Krishna sees how the gopis have developed pure love for him, that's the important point, pure love for him, he becomes very satisfied. What is this pure love? Is this characterized by the mutual behavior in transcendental love. Because all the gopis are in the highest platform of prema, Krishna prema, that's why they're engaging in that platform without any kind of lust, envy, jealousy like that. When Krishna sees such cooperation among devotees, he is very happy, it seems. That's what is being described. He becomes very satisfied. So this is another important principle for us, that when we cooperate with other devotees, Krishna is pleased. That can be one of the motivation for us to work out with each other, nice thing like that. Okay, that's the 214 verse. Then going to 215 verse. So here, this verse and next verse is talking about the nature of the love of the gopis, which is topmost transcendental love compared to the material lust that we see. This is a nice definition actually coming up in this paragraph and purport and verse also. Is here it's saying gopis lusty desire is not to be compared to material lust. But sometimes the word material lust is used. Okay. That means even though they're actually having transcendental love, Krishna prema, sometimes the lust word is used in certain verses like that. But actually it's nowhere close to material lust. Why? That is described in the next verse. Because their dealings are at the Krishna prema level, they're sometimes called as lusty, but because they're completely spiritual, that is why Uddhava and other devotees desire to participate in that loving relationships like that. So that's what is being discussed. In the purport, Prabhupada gives one the meaning difference between lusty affairs and spiritual love. He says the lusty affairs of gopis actually constitute the topmost love of Godhead. Why? Because they never act for their own personal satisfaction. They are simply pleased by engaging other gopis in service of the Lord. So they're not trying to get, I want to associate with Krishna so I can enjoy. Not like that. Their mood is to give opportunity for other gopis to associate with Krishna, and that gives them satisfaction like that. So Prabhupada writes, that is the difference between material lust and love of Godhead. Yeah, that's the important principle also for us to know. And then there's no purport for 216. 212. Here, here the elaboration is being given of the transcendental love or spiritual love and material lust. Elaboration is being given. What is that? He says that when we are considering our own personal sense gratification, that is the lusty desires. But gopis' mood is not like that. They are desiring to satisfy the senses of Krishna. So that is the platform we are also trying to get to, from our own enjoyment to service to Krishna. That is the mood we are trying to cultivate also as practicing devotees. So there's no purport, I think. Yeah, there's no purport for the few verses. And then 20th verse, These are making the same point that among gopis, there's no desire for sense gratification. They only want pleasure for Krishna. There, today it was a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam, where it's proving the same point that they are only concerned because Krishna is walking barefoot in the forest. Maybe his soft lotus feet are pricked by small bits of stone. So they're worried about pain that is coming for Krishna. That's why their minds are very much disturbed, it seems. Like that. That is a verse being quoted here from Srimad Bhagavatam to show that they're not focused on their sense gratification, but they're trying to please Krishna. They're worried about Krishna only, like that. Then 220th verse. What happened? Did I skip any verses? No. Okay. 220 verse. Here, all the gopi, one who is attracted by that ecstatic love of the gopis. Now remember, this whole section is about sadhana, process we need to follow to get the perfection. So if you're attracted by such great love of the gopis, and then such a person, elevated person, actually doesn't care about public opinion and doing the Vedic dharmas like that. Instead, he completely surrenders to Krishna and renders service to him, like that. So this section is describing about Raganuga Marga. Raganuga Marga means, remember, sadhana bhakti has two stages. One is called Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, and then Raganuga sadhana bhakti. Vaidhi sadhana bhakti means we are doing it based on rules and regulations because speech master will be pleased because it's good for me. It's what Krishna says, like that. In that mode, we'll do more of like duty form. That's a Vidhi sadhana bhakti. Whereas Raganuga sadhana bhakti is where we already got a spontaneous desire to serve Krishna. Natural desire to serve Krishna is there. Not that it's because it's good for me. Oh, I want to serve Krishna, like that. We're already in that platform. That's a higher platform. That's called Raganuga Bhakti. Another aspect of Raganuga Bhakti is, I'm summarizing this section, then we can go through verses easily. Then another point about Raganuga Bhakti is, we're following in the footsteps of another Ragatmaka Bhakta. That means Bhakta, devotee who is already perfected life in spiritual world. Like for example, Yashoda Mataji or Gopis or Nanda Maharaj, like that. So that is a following them and doing devotion service spontaneously is called Raganuga Bhakti. So here 220 is saying, yeah, we talked about this one already. Yeah. And 221, so if one worships the Lord on path of spontaneous love, that path of spontaneous means Raganuga Bhakti, and goes to Vrindavana, he receives the shelter of Krishna. So basically, to receive the shelter of Krishna, we need to be worshipping in spontaneous love. That means we need to get to that stage, not that we need to give up the Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti and directly jump there. With the spiritual master's guidance, we can slowly practice our Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti and get to the Raganuga Sadhana platform also. Yeah, that's what is purport talking about that only. Sorry. And then 222. This whole section is about Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. Is saying, in his liberated state, the devotee is attracted by one of the five rasas. One of the five rasas, Santa, Dasya, Sakya, parental Vatsalya rasa, and then Madhurya rasa, like that, right? One of the five rasas, the devotee is attracted in the higher stages in liberated platform. Then, when he is serving, after being attracted like that, then he attains the spiritual body to serve Krishna in Golok Vrindavan. That means he gives up the material body, gross body, material subtle body like that, and achieves a spiritual body. Actually, there's several verses coming up that focus on this point, that we are when we achieve perfection, we have a spiritual body, not the material body, like that. There's no purport for this. Okay, next verse. So now some examples are given here. That means some Shrutis who represent the Vedas, saintly persons who represent the Upanishads, like that, are vivid examples of this. How? They are worshipping Krishna by following the footsteps of gopis. And how are they worshipping? In spontaneous love. That's one example being given by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami for us to understand how even Vedic literatures like Shrutis, personified Vedas, they are trying to worship Krishna in the Raganusadhana Bhakti. Like that. Now going to, now this purport is the point. Yeah. Interestingly, couple of things I liked in the purport. One is like we're getting to know some friends' names. For servants' name, Krishna servants' names, Raktaka and Patraka are two names mentioned here. And couple of Krishna's friends' names, we know Sridama and Subala also are mentioned here. And then the later part of the purport, oh, that we already talked about. Only by following the footsteps of gopis, Sutis could achieve the perfection like that. Now, 224, here it is describing that Upanishads are saying, this is a quote from Upanishads, they are saying that gopis ultimately tasted the nectar of lotus feet of Krishna. We Upanishads can also taste the nectar of Krishna's lotus feet by following in the footsteps of the gopis. So this is important. By following the footsteps of gopis, they can get their perfection like that. So that's important for us also. Devotees, we need, that's why we say devotee association is needed all the way to the perfection like that. Then here this is describing few of the words in the previous verse. Essentially is saying that following the mood of gopis is what is stressed here. And Sutis, when they perfected, they attain the spiritual bodies like those of the gopis, it seems. And then, yeah, intimate association with Krishna is possible only when we do spontaneous devotion service. So that means, and see, this is a common thing we hear. If we do only regulated principles worship, we cannot go to Golok Vrindavan. We will only go to Vaikuntha Loka, like that. So the only devotees in spontaneous loving service, they can go to Golok Vrindavana. Like that's the point is made in these two verses. That's why, as we elevate with spiritual master guidance, we can accept the mood of the gopis in the service of Radha Krishna. Yeah. That's at that time when we are elevated in that stage, then we can think about the past tense of Radha Krishna like that. Then while thinking about past tense like that, what will happen? Our material contamination will go away and we transfer back to spiritual world. And the next verse stresses, next couple of verses stress that happens by obtaining a spiritual body. Actually, obtaining the spiritual body is also called Siddha Deha, that is described in 229 verse, this verse itself actually. That's perfected spiritual body, Siddha Deha, is different from material gross body and material subtle body, it seems. So that's described in 229 verse. And then another interesting thing in the purport I noted is that in the spiritual body, there are no material desires. That means once you go back to spiritual world, there are no material desires because we're fully satisfied by service to Krishna. And yeah, that's the 229. And 230. So this again stressing the point that following the footsteps of Gopi is important to attain the service of Krishna in the same mode like that. Yeah. And if we are overcome by Krishna's greatness or Aishwarya, then we cannot go back to Krishna's Golok Vrindavan like that. That's the other point being made here. Because Aishwarya Bhava is in Vaikuntha Loka. The higher rasas are there in Golok Vrindavan like that. And then, yeah, I think we covered that one. Okay, 231. 231, another example is how this is true. If somebody is attracted by opulence of Krishna, how they cannot achieve Golok Vrindavan. Example is given as Lakshmi Devi herself, who worshipped Lord Krishna in order to attain his pastimes in Vrindavana. But because of her opulent lifestyle, she could not attain the service of Krishna in Vrindavana. Oh, we're already at 7 o'clock. Let me pause here because there's a Bhagavad Gita class starting. So we can continue from 2:32 onwards tomorrow. Yeah, so those of you who are interested, you can stay on the Bhagavad Gita class if you're okay. Otherwise, it's okay. If you have some other services, you can drop also. Yes, Sri Chaitanya Chaitamata ki jai, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Let's offer obeisance to all the devotees of the Lord. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kupasindubhyevacha Paitana pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Thank you so much, devotees. Hare Krishna.